Ladies and gentlemen, every individual who has ever done something meaningful in life has faced challenges. Not once, not occasionally, but repeatedly. Challenges are not interruptions in life. They are life, and understanding how to face them becomes the defining factor between growth and stagnation. The first and most crucial step in overcoming challenges lies in your mindset. It may sound simple, but it is one of the most powerful truths in human growth. How you think determines how you act, and how you act determines what you become. Challenges do not destroy people. It is often their thinking that does. When adversity strikes, many react with defeat because they've already surrendered in their minds. They tell themselves things like, "I'm not good enough," or "this is too much for me." That internal narrative becomes a prison that locks their potential behind imaginary bars. But there's another way, a mindset that sees obstacles not as the end of the road, but as a part of the journey. The growth mindset believes that no matter where you start, improvement is always possible. Intelligence, skill, and strength are not fixed traits. They are muscles that grow with resistance. When you face a challenge with a fixed mindset, you see struggle as a sign of inadequacy. But with a growth mindset, struggle becomes the very evidence that you are being stretched into something more. You stop asking, "Am I smart enough to do this?" and start asking, "How can I grow through this?" That small shift in thinking transforms the way you approach everything. People with a powerful mindset don't pretend life is easy. They simply refuse to let hard times define them. They understand that failure doesn't say anything final about their future. It's feedback. It's information. It's a moment in time, not the measure of a lifetime. When the world says you can't, a growth-oriented mind responds with, "Watch me try." Not because of pride, but because of belief in the process. This doesn't mean you ignore pain or disappointment. It means you don't give it the final word. Mindset also affects how we interpret effort. A fixed mindset avoids challenge because it's afraid of being exposed. It says, if I try and fail, I'll look weak. But a growth mindset leans into challenge, knowing that every attempt brings insight. Even if you fall short, you've moved forward in understanding. That's why those with the right mindset often seem fearless. They are not attached to the idea of always being right. They are attached to the idea of always learning. Their confidence comes not from certainty, but from their willingness to continue. This perspective is what allows someone to stand tall when life gets heavy. It's not that their challenges are smaller, it's that their thinking is stronger. They don't shrink in difficulty. When people say mind over matter, this is what they mean. The internal belief that no matter how hard the situation, you still have something to bring to it. You are not helpless. You are not done. Your response can still shape the outcome. That belief alone can create new energy in the darkest moments. In the end, the difference between those who rise and those who fall often comes down to one invisible factor: how they think when it gets hard. If your mind is rooted in fear, limitation, or shame, even small problems will feel overwhelming. But if your mind is trained in growth, persistence, and self-trust, even large problems will start to look like opportunities. That is the foundation. That is the key. The battle begins in your thoughts, and once your thinking shifts, your life starts to shift with it. Discomfort is something most people try to avoid. It's natural to seek ease, to desire comfort, to want things to go smoothly. But when it comes to growth, progress, and overcoming life's challenges, discomfort is not an enemy. It is a teacher. The very feeling we try to escape is often the one that carries our greatest lessons. Growth doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens in the pressure, in the friction, and in the tension that demands more us than we thought we had. When you feel uncomfortable, it is not a sign to quit. It is a signal that something is being stretched and developed inside of you. Every breakthrough is preceded by a moment of discomfort. Whether it's learning a new skill, healing from emotional wounds, starting over after failure, or standing firm in a difficult decision. These moments are never wrapped in comfort. They are heavy, uncertain, and often filled with fear. But if you dig deeper, you'll notice something else hidden within that discomfort. A choice. The choice to run or to lean in. The choice to escape or to endure. Those who grow through their challenges are not necessarily stronger than others. They've simply chosen to see discomfort as part of the path, not a block in the road. One of the greatest realizations you can come to is that discomfort is not there to destroy you. It is there to develop you. Think of a muscle. It only grows when it is pushed beyond its comfort zone. If you never apply resistance, that muscle will remain weak. The same is true for your emotional, mental, and spiritual strength. Every time life puts you in a place of discomfort, your inner capacity is being tested and expanded. But that only happens if you stay in it long enough to gain the wisdom it offers. If you run too early, you rob yourself of what that challenge was trying to build in you. Most people never see what they're capable because they exit the process too soon. The moment discomfort arrives, they back away thinking they've made the wrong decision or gone the wrong way. But growth is uncomfortable by design. It strips away illusions, exposes weaknesses, and brings up buried fears, not to shame you, but to prepare you. If you want to become stronger, more resilient, more focused, you must be willing to let discomfort shape you. That shaping process is painful, yes, but it is never pointless. Sometimes discomfort shows up not because you're failing, but because you're moving in the right direction. Growth is supposed to feel awkward, it's unfamiliar. It takes you beyond what you know and asks you to become someone you've never been before. That's not easy, but the reward is always on the other side. If you can sit in that tension, breathe through the resistance, and keep showing up, when nothing feels easy, you will emerge with strength you never knew you had. It's important to remember that there is a difference between destructive pain and productive discomfort. Not all pain is useful, but discomfort that comes from stretching, learning, and evolving, that kind of pain is worth enduring. It builds endurance, it creates depth, it shapes character, and over time, it rewires your mind to see hard moments, not as threats, but as invitations to rise higher. So the next time you find yourself in a difficult place, don't just ask, how can I get out of this? Instead, ask, what is this trying to teach me? That single question can turn your struggle into a stepping stone. Discomfort is not your punishment, it's your preparation. Let it teach you, let it grow you, and you'll find that the very place you wanted to escape from was the place where you were being transformed. There's a common misconception that success or transformation depends on motivation. People often say they're waiting to feel inspired before they take action, as if motivation is a magical force that needs to strike before progress can begin. But those who overcome real challenges and achieve lasting growth understand something different. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline is reliable. It is not the emotional high that carries you through difficulty. It is the consistent commitment to act, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is the quiet strength behind every breakthrough. Motivation is emotional. It rises when you're excited, when the atmosphere feels right, or when something stirs your passion. But life is not always filled with those moments. Some days you wake up tired, discouraged, uncertain, or overwhelmed. On those days, motivation is nowhere to be found. If your progress depends on how you feel in those moments, you won't get very far. But if you've developed discipline, the decision to act, regardless of how you feel, you will keep moving forward even in the absence of emotional energy. Discipline is built through repetition. It is forged in daily choices, not occasional inspiration. It begins when you decide that the goal matters more than your mood. It shows up when you say yes to the hard thing because you know what's at stake. Discipline doesn't ask, do I feel like it? It asks, what needs to be done? That mindset creates results. It builds consistency. And consistency over time creates momentum that motivation alone can never match. The beauty of discipline is that it strengthens the very areas where you feel weakest. When you practice discipline in one area of your life, whether it's waking up early, controlling your thoughts, staying committed to your values, or pushing through when things get tough, it spills into other areas. You become more dependable, more focused, more resilient, and eventually what once felt impossible becomes second nature. Not because it got easier, but because you got stronger. Discipline also teaches you self-respect. Every time you do what you said you would do, even when it's uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that your word matters. That builds confidence from the inside out. You stop relying on external motivation to keep going because you've developed internal trust. You've learned that you don't need to feel powerful to act powerfully. That's a life-changing truth. The more you act in alignment with your goals, the more your identity begins to shift. You stop saying, I hope I can become disciplined, and you start saying, I am disciplined. That shift in identity is where real transformation takes root. There will always be distraction. There will always be reasons to delay. Life is filled with noise, setbacks, and interruption. But discipline cuts through that noise. It allows you to stay rooted in your priorities, even when your environment is chaotic. It is your anchor when emotions try to pull you in the wrong direction. It is your foundation when everything else feels unstable. And over time, it becomes your superpower, not because you never struggle, but because you no longer depend on fleeting motivation to keep. The path to overcoming challenges is not paved with perfect days. It's filled with ordinary days where you made the choice to show up. It's made of moments where you honored the process, even when there was no visible progress. Discipline is not glamorous. It often goes, but it is what creates greatness behind the scenes. When others quit because the excitement wore off, disciplined people keep building. And that is how you turn dreams into results. Not by waiting to feel ready, but by being ready to act, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is the invisible force that quietly shapes lives, goals, and futures. While motivation may spark the initial flame of desire, it is discipline that keeps the fire. Many people believe that they need to feel motivated in order to act. But those who rise above challenges know the deeper truth. You cannot depend on how you feel to determine what you do. Feelings fluctuate. Circumstances change. Energy levels rise and fall. But discipline, true, consistent, committed discipline is what carries you through when inspiration is nowhere to be found. It is not a mood. It is a mindset. And this mindset can be trained, strengthened, and built into the very fabric of your character. When life becomes difficult and obstacles appear, most people instinctively wait for the right moment, the right mood, or the right motivation to act. But waiting is a trap. If you wait until you feel ready, you may never begin. If you wait until you feel strong, the opportunity may pass. Discipline, however, says, I will act because it needs to be done, not because I feel like doing it. That kind of internal strength separates those who push through challenges from those who are defeated by them. It's not about being superhuman or emotionless. It's about making a commitment that is stronger than your feelings. The truth is that discipline is often uncomfortable. It requires you to deny short-term pleasure for long-term reward. It asks you to show up when everything inside of you wants to quit. But every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are building a stronger version of yourself. Each disciplined decision becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. And with time, those small, consistent choices create results that motivation alone could never produce. People often confuse discipline with harshness, but real discipline is actually an act of self-love. It is choosing what's best for you, even when it's not easy. It's saying, I respect my goals, my purpose, and my future enough to do what's necessary today. That mindset builds resilience. You begin to see yourself not as someone who simply reacts to life, but as someone who leads themselves through it. You stop being a prisoner to your emotions and become the architect of your actions. What's more, discipline is contagious. The more you practice it in one area, the more it spreads others. When you train your mind to say yes to responsibility and no to excuses, you find it easier to stay focused, keep promises, and follow through on commitments. And eventually, the things that once required extreme effort start to feel natural. This is where discipline becomes a habit, not just something you do, but part of who you are. You no longer need constant motivation because your identity has changed. You see yourself as disciplined, capable, and responsible, and your actions reflect that belief. Another powerful effect of discipline is its ability to build confidence. Every time you follow through, you prove to yourself that you are trustworthy. You gain self-respect. You stop needing approval from others. because you've earned your own. That kind of quiet confidence doesn't come from success alone. It comes from doing the hard things even when nobody's watching. It comes from keeping your word to yourself. And once you build that trust, you become unstoppable. In life, challenges are guaranteed. You will face days when you feel tired, discouraged, or unsure. But those are the very days when discipline becomes your advantage. It gives you structure when chaos hits. It gives you progress when motivation disappears. It gives you strength when emotion fails. With discipline, you don't just wait for the right time. You create it. And that is the true key to overcoming anything life throws at you. When life becomes difficult, when challenges feel overwhelming and the path ahead is uncertain, there is one thing that can keep a person anchored and moving forward: clarity of purpose. Without it, it's easy to drift. You start reacting to life instead of directing it. You become more focused on how things feel rather than why you started. But when your purpose is clear, when you know the reason behind your actions, you are far more capable of enduring discomfort, setbacks, and delays. Purpose gives your pain meaning. It turns obstacles into stepping stones and suffering into sacrifice. It becomes the lens through which every challenge is filtered, and that clarity gives you the strength to keep going, even when the road feels impossible. Clarity of purpose is like having a compass in the middle of a storm. You may not see the shore, the winds may push against you, and the waves may rise, but as long as you know your direction, you will not lose your way. Purpose doesn't always make the journey easier, but it makes it worth it. When you know what you are fighting for, you are more willing to stay in the fight. The process becomes bearable because you see the bigger picture. You're not just enduring difficulty, you're pursuing destiny. Too often people start something with excitement, but abandon it when the emotional energy fades. That's because they were chasing a feeling, not rooted in purpose. Feelings are temporary. They rise and fall with circumstances. But purpose is steady. It's deeper than mood. It's stronger than emotion. It speaks to who you are, what you're called to do, and what legacy you want to leave behind. And once you lock into it, your mindset shifts. You stop asking, is this hard? And you start asking, is this worth it? That question alone changes everything. Clarity of purpose also protects you from comparison. When you know what you're meant to do, you no longer waste time measuring your progress against someone else's path. You stop getting distracted by other successes or discouraged by their timelines. Instead, you focus on your own mission. You run your race. And because your focus is inward, you become more consistent. You are no longer driven by applause or external approval. You are driven by vision. Another powerful thing about purpose is that it doesn't just help you survive pain, it transforms the way you interpret it. Pain becomes part of the process, not a punishment. You start to understand that every sacrifice has significance. The long nights, the setbacks, the delays, all of it is contributing to something greater. And because of that, you don't resent the struggle. You embrace it. You start to say, this is shaping me for what I've been called to do. That understanding gives you endurance that motivation alone could never provide. Purpose also refines your choices. When you are clear about your why, your what and how, become more intentional, you begin to say no to distractions and yes to discipline. You stop chasing every opportunity and start focusing on the ones that align with your mission. You protect your time. You guard your energy. You prioritize your actions. And over time, those aligned decisions compound into results. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things again and again. Clarity of purpose is not something you stumble upon. It's something you pursue, define, and remind yourself of daily. It may evolve over time, but it remains your foundation. When life gets heavy and the path forward seems unclear, purpose is what reminds you that there is still meaning in the midst of the mess. It pulls you forward when everything else says to stop. And that pull, that inner conviction, is often the very thing that leads you. So when the journey gets hard, don't just look for relief, look for clarity. Because once you know your why, you can endure almost any. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. From an early age, people are conditioned to believe that failure is something to fear, something that marks them as inadequate or not good enough. But this belief is one of the biggest barriers to growth, because the truth is that failure is not the end of the road. It's a signpost along the way. It is feedback, not finality. Every failure contains information. It reveals what doesn't work so you can get closer to what. The most successful people in any field are not those who have avoided failure, but those who have embraced it, studied it, and used it as a foundation for learning and improvement. When you shift your mindset and begin to see failure as feedback, your whole approach to challenges changes. You stop seeing mistakes as evidence that you should give up and start viewing them as opportunities to get better. Failure is one of life's most honest teachers. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't sugarcoat things. It exposes gaps in your preparation, your habits, or your thinking. Not to shame you, but to show you what needs attention. That kind of feedback is incredibly valuable if you're willing to listen to it. Those who learn from failure become wiser. Those who fear it become stuck. The key is to separate failure from identity. Just because something you tried didn't succeed does not mean you are a failure. It simply means that your current method didn't work or that you weren't yet ready. That's all. But many people internalize failure and let it define them. They let a failed attempt silence their efforts. They assume that their worth is measured by their outcome. This is not only false, it's dangerous. Your value is not tied to your performance. Your failures do not cancel your potential. They are part of the process of reaching it. In fact, failure can be the very thing that prepares you for your next level. There are lessons you learn in failure that success will never teach you. Failure humbles you. It sharpens your focus. It builds resilience. It forces you to reflect. And most importantly, it tests your commitment. Anyone can keep going when things are going well. But when everything falls apart and you still choose to stand up and try again, that's when real strength is formed. It is in those moments that character is built. You also discover through failure what matters most to you. When you've fallen down and everything in you wants to quit, but something inside keeps pushing you forward, that's purpose revealing itself. Failure strips away the superficial and reveals the core of your motivation. It clarifies whether you are doing something for approval, recognition, or genuine calling. And once you know what truly drives you, your next attempt becomes more powerful, more focused, and more authentic. Another important truth is that failure is often a sign of courage. It means you tried, you stepped out, you risked something. You took action while others stayed silent or still. That alone is something to be proud of. The people who never fail are usually the ones who never dared to be. So if you failed, take heart. It means you are in motion. It means you are learning. It means you are stretching the limits of who you are and stepping into who you're becoming. The goal is not to avoid failure, to become someone who knows how to respond to it. Reflect on it, learn from it, and move forward with more clarity and strength. Let failure be your instructor, not your judge. Because when you refuse to let failure define you, it becomes your fuel. And in that moment, what was once seen as the end becomes the very beginning of a greater story. Progress is rarely a straight line. It is often slow, subtle, and invisible in the early stages. This is why many people quit. They don't see immediate results, so they assume that nothing is working. But real growth doesn't always announce itself with loud success. It works quietly in the background, shaping you little by little. This is why having faith in the process is more important than chasing perfection. Perfection is a myth. It sets impossible standards and leaves no room for struggle or mistakes. But the process is real. It includes your highs and lows, your wins and your setbacks. Trusting that process even when it's difficult keeps you moving forward when nothing seems to be changing. People often want guarantees. They want to know that their efforts will produce visible outcomes quickly. But life doesn't work that way. Some of your most important progress will happen beneath the surface. Just like a seed planted in the soil takes time to grow roots before it ever breaks through the ground. Your inner development is happening before you see external success. Faith in the process means understanding that just because you don't see results yet doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Something is taking shape. You're becoming stronger, wiser, more focused, even if no one sees it yet, including you. Perfection, on the other hand, is a trap. It convinces you that unless everything is done flawlessly, it doesn't count. It tells you that mistakes are signs of failure instead of signs of learning. It puts pressure on you to perform rather than progress. And that pressure can paralyze you. You begin to hesitate, overthink, or avoid taking risks because you're afraid of falling short. But the truth is, growth requires imperfection. It demands effort, not flawlessness. Every time you show up, even imperfectly, you're reinforcing your commitment to becoming better. That's what the process is about. incremental, often unseen improvement. Having faith in the process also means being patient with yourself. It means recognizing that growth isn't always exciting. Some days will feel mundane. Some lessons will be repeated. Some steps will seem small. But every step counts. You don't climb a mountain in one, you take it one step at a time, and sometimes that step is just holding your ground. Progress isn't always about forward motion. It's also about not giving up when things get hard. And that kind of endurance is only possible when you trust the journey more than you fear the delay. Another part of trusting the process is accepting that setbacks are part of the path. They are not detours, they are built into the journey. When you fall, when something doesn't work, when you take longer than expected, it's not a sign that you're off track. It's part of what shapes you. It builds resilience, it strengthens your resolve, and it sharpens your perspective. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment has the potential to develop something in you that success alone never could. Faith in the process is also about celebrating progress, no matter how small. When you begin to notice the little victories, the tiny signs of growth, you stop being discouraged by what you haven't achieved and start being encouraged by how far you've come.
You learn to measure success differently, not by perfection, but by persistence. You start to realize that the version of you who keeps going, keeps learning, and keeps trying is already succeeding. In the end, it's not the person who does everything perfectly who wins. It's the one who stays in the process. The one who believes that small steps matter. The one who shows up even on the hard days. The one who trusts that what's happening inside is preparing them for what's coming outside. That is where transformation happens. Not in chasing perfection, but in faithfully walking through the process, step by step, day by day, until growth becomes undeniable. The journey of overcoming challenges is not defined by luck, talent, or perfect timing. It is defined by mindset, perspective, and daily choices. When you understand that your thoughts shape your responses, you begin to take control of your inner world. When you embrace discomfort as a necessary part of growth, you stop running from difficulty and start learning from it. When you choose discipline over fleeting motivation, you build the consistency that progress requires. When your purpose is clear, you find strength to endure the storms that would otherwise break you. When failure is seen not as an end, but as feedback, you begin to grow stronger with every setback. And when you trust the process rather than chase perfection, you learn that progress is happening even when it's not immediately visible. Every challenge you face is not a wall, it is a doorway to a stronger version of you. And if you walk through it with courage, clarity, and commitment, you'll discover that what once felt impossible is actually part of what shapes you into someone capable, resilient, and wise. So don't give up. Don't fear the struggle. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Rise with what you have, where you are, and take the next step. Because the key to overcoming challenges has never been about avoiding them. It has always been about growing through them. And that growth, one step at a time, is where transformation begins.